Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 30th anniversary of Jurassic Park. That's right, today we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of this cinematic masterpiece that released way back in 1993. By the time I am scripting this, there are no current announcements or major celebrations that are planned or happening for JP30 unfortunately, which definitely feels like an incredible wasted opportunity. So today, we're celebrating in our own way and going back to take a look at this beautiful movie. Today, we're doing a full movie breakdown and discussing all of the hidden details and Easter eggs that you might have missed throughout the movie. Not only is Jurassic Park turning 30 years old today, but the entirety of the Jurassic Saga is also turning 30 years old too, meaning that now that this story is over, we have much more to connect and look back on in the original movie. But now, without any further explanation, you all know where this is going. Let's get into every single detail and Easter egg that you might have missed in Jurassic Park. In the opening sequence of the movie, this is the same raptor paddock that we see in a scene later where Muldoon explains how they have to now feed the velociraptors. In this scene, where Gennaro arrives in the Dominican Republic, it was not scripted for him to slip on the rocks. At the time of watching Jurassic Park for the first time, we don't understand that mosquitoes were the reasoning for dinosaurs being alive, so it's teased very on in the movie here. In Montana, Alan Grant and his team are seen digging up a velociraptor skeleton, a dinosaur that would infamously be connected to him throughout Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park 3. Alan Grant starts to discuss how dinosaurs and birds are very similar. We see this hinted at during the opening sequence of Jurassic World. When Alan Grant describes the attack of the velociraptors to the little kid, he mentions how they attack from the sides. This is shown later in the movie, as well as in the franchise in Jurassic Park 3 and also mentioned once again in Jurassic World Dominion.
Watch the sides. They always come from the sides.
After Grant scares the kid, he mentions how maybe the velociraptor could cut his stomach and spit out his intestines and eat you whilst you're alive. Whilst it may be a slightly different dinosaur, this is quite descriptive and similar to what you can read about in the original Jurassic Park novel for Nedry's death. The tail sign of N522RS on the side of the helicopter that John Hammond is in is actually a real-life registered Bell helicopter Textron. This specific helicopter was registered back in the 7th of June 1991. For a brief moment when Alan Grant enters his trailer, you can see a lot of Tyrannosaur sketches as well as a toy model, suggesting that his recent work was focused on Tyrannosaurs before moving on to Velociraptors, which you can also see is there as well. In the background behind Hammond, you can see a few articles, one of which discusses dinosaurs on Mars, which was a popular, fun idea back in the early 1990s. In the same scene, another sign behind John Hammond says no animal released without paperwork completely filled out. Both Ellie and Alan only study extinct species, but this sign cleverly foreshadows the dinosaur's escape later on in the movie. When Lewis Dodson arrives in Costa Rica to meet up with Dennis Nedry, he leaves the car door open, meaning that the taxi driver has to go around the car and shut it. This shows off Dodson's personality about only caring for himself, something that we later see in Jurassic World Dominion and Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. If we take a quick look at Nedry's plate, we can see that it's full of leftovers from what he has been eating whilst he was there, which again shows his greed, which is a major characteristic of him throughout the film. Nedry's fluorescent flower pattern shirt may also be a reference to another Spielberg movie called The Goonies. This isn't the only one throughout the movie. When Dennis Nedry says, "your company" to Lewis Dodson, he is talking about Biosyn, something that isn't name dropped in the movies until Jurassic World Dominion, but is in fact mentioned early on in the novel. Ian Malcolm and John Hammond are sitting on opposite sides of the helicopter, as well as wearing opposite colours of clothing. Malcolm with the pessimistic black colour scheme, and Hammond with the more optimistic white colour scheme, a contrast and reflection to their opinions about Jurassic Park. The InGen helicopter with the call sign N293G is also a different one than to what we saw earlier in the movie. This, again, is a real-life helicopter that unfortunately seemingly crashed back in the year of 2001. This helicopter would later return in the movie towards the end. Whilst everyone is buckling into their seats, Alan has two female ends of the seatbelt, which is a little nod towards all the dinosaurs being female in Jurassic Park. And he found a way to make it work, just like the dinosaurs did. We see Ellie holding an extinct form of plant. Unfortunately, in the final cut of this movie, it makes no sense for her to be holding this. That's because there is a deleted scene that shows her snapping this leaf off as they drive by the plant. The first full dinosaur that we see in this movie is Brachiosaurus, a giant. This is a direct contrast to the first dinosaur we learn about in the books, which is the Compsognathus, one of the smallest dinosaurs ever discovered. This could be a nod to the difference between cinema and novels at the time. This right here is the only time we see the dinosaur species Parasaurolophus in the movie. However, it went on to feature in every single movie as well as Camp Cretaceous from here on out. When driving up to the visitor centre for the first time, we can see that renovations are still going on and that it's not fully completed just yet. This is for later on in the movie that explains how the T-Rex was able to sneak into the visitor centre to kill the velociraptors at the end of Jurassic Park. A dinosaur species that we'll never get to see in the Jurassic Saga is shown in a skeletal form. The sauropod skeleton actually belongs to an Alamosaurus. Over the intercom, we can hear Samuel L. Jackson's first appearance in this movie, teasing what time the final event of Jurassic Park will take place, as he states that the boats will be leaving at 7 PM that day. Dr. Wu! As we discussed in a recent video of mine, this baby velociraptor sadly went on to die of starvation within the next few hours or days. Muldoon mentions how the velociraptors test the fences for weaknesses, showing their intelligence. But, later on in the movie, we see that Rexy also tests the fences to see if the power is out, showing that all dinosaurs in this park are far more intelligent than given credit for. Some future attractions that we can see in the background here are actually somewhat similar to some scenes that are described in the book. Jurassic Park's projected success chart in the background shows that Hammond expects Jurassic Park to bring in more attendance and audiences than sports and zoos. This shows Hammond's childlike wonder that is still within him. Deep into the background, Jurassic Park Europe is swiftly teased. As we know, Jurassic Park Europe was planned for the Portuguese-owned archipelago called the Azores should Jurassic Park ever become a success. This was the same for Japan as well. Lex and Tim have swapped roles from the book. Lex is older, more mature, whereas now Tim is the younger sibling. Tim references a real book written by paleontologist Robert T. Bakker, who happened to be an advisor on the film. During the discussion, Tim is holding a different book. This book that he is holding is a fictional book written by Dr. Alan Grant called Dinosaur Detectives. Ellie Sattler is eagerly watching how Alan Grant handles Tim, as she really wants to have kids one day, whereas Alan doesn't. Richard Kiley being the voice of the interface guide for Jurassic Park alone is pretty cool, but in the novel, Michael Crichton credited Kiley as the virtual guide as well. Malcolm's words about King Kong is a reference to the gate scene during the 1933 King Kong movie. This also indirectly confirms that the King Kong, Skull Island and possibly Monsterverse movies might exist within this universe. Richard Kiley explains how they now know the Dilophosaurus was poisonous and could spit venom at its prey. This is to explain why the Dilophosaurus looks slightly different than to its paleontological counterparts. As we know, the frill, venom and spitting is all a design choice by the creators of the movie, and a very good one as well. Very quickly, you can see that Dennis Nedry is watching another Steven Spielberg movie on his computer, this one movie being Jaws, possibly meaning that Steven Spielberg exists in the Jurassic universe as well. The man in the photo on Nedry's computer is J. Robert Oppenheimer, the theoretical physicist who helped design the atomic bomb. It is now worth mentioning that Universal, the company who owned Jurassic Park, is releasing a movie called Oppenheimer in just a few months as well. The doctor that appears looking after the Triceratops is Dr. Jerry Hardin. Yes, a relative to Sarah Hardin, who we see in the Lost World Jurassic Park. His alternate universe self also appears in the Jurassic Park Telltale game. Dennis Nedry has decided to call his Jurassic Park system account as Nedryland. When Nedry is cycling through the embryos, we can see a few incorrect spellings for dinosaur names, most noticeably Stegosaurus instead of Stegosaurus, as well as Tyrannosaurus Rex missing an extra N. Not only that, but other species that were bred for Jurassic Park but we never got to see also appear, Metriacanthosaurus and Proceratosaurus. While these two do appear in the Jurassic World Evolution video games, they never appear on screen canonically ever throughout this movie saga. The sound that the goat makes at night is the same sound that was later used for the goat in 2003's Jurassic Park Operation Genesis video game. During the scene where Rexy attacks both Lex and Tim, the animatronic got too wet and ended up glitching, breaking the sunroof and causing a real fear to the child actors that were caught in this situation. Also during the scene, one of Rexy's tooth accidentally gets chipped off. Instead of making this a movie error, the future movies of Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom and Dominion all make it a character design. You can see her missing tooth in these movies, which is an Easter egg from this event in Jurassic Park. When Ian waves the flare around, you can see there's a strange tattoo on his arm. This tattoo is only seen in one other frame throughout the movie, but never again. This actually remains as one of Jurassic Park's biggest mysteries. Some may be confused about the massive drop that is seen during this sequence, but this was actually the intention. This is not part of the Tyrannosaurus exhibit and is instead designed as a moat for the dinosaur to not escape further into the park. The entirety of Dennis Nedry's death scene is very similar to his death in the novel, just a little less gory. Nedry's outfit here is yet again another reference to the Goonies. The Barbasol can that dropped and got smothered in mud was originally supposed to set up the first draft of the Lost World Jurassic Park. This was later scrapped and instead used to set up the non-canon Telltale game. The Barbasol can was also left behind in Dilophosaurus territory, and the next person to touch this exact can in the timeline would be Lewis Dodson in 2016. Another accidental slip is seen in this movie, as Muldoon almost loses his footing. The brochures, seen all muddy and on the floor, are the same ones that released as merchandise when the original movie released back in 1993. As mentioned earlier within the movie, the T-Rex is clocked at 36 miles an hour. Muldoon tries to shift the Jeep into 4th gear, which is typically able to reach speeds between 40 and 50 miles an hour, which is why the Jeep was able to speed away from the T-Rex once he was able to put it in 4th gear. Alan Grant throws away his raptor claw as a sign that he's practically done with digging up dinosaurs, as he accepts the fact that genetical engineering is here to bring them back and potentially put him out of a job. The Jurassic Park gift shop showcases a saber-toothed tiger, foreshadowing its first appearance in the timeline in 2016 during Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous Season 4. The book, called The Making of Jurassic Park, is seen within the gift shop, a book that actually released in our world at the original time of the movie being made public. John Hammond mentions that Disneyland opened in 1956, however, in our reality, it opened in 1955. Following this, Ian Malcolm brings up Pirates of the Caribbean that was at Disneyland, as that's a little tease to Steven Spielberg's favourite ride from Disneyland. When Lex and Tim are climbing over the fence, you can see a movie mistake here involving the fences. We can clearly see that the fence just suddenly stops, meaning that they could have easily and simply walked around the fence instead of climbing it. Ray Arnold's arm appearing was a very quick way to kill off the character, as his deleted scene wasn't able to be filmed due to the hurricane that swept across Hawaii during filming. Ellie Sattler is shown to be limping, but with no obvious injury. Again, she was initially supposed to have been attacked by a velociraptor and hurt her leg in the process. As the iconic Clever Girl scene unfolds, Muldoon is distracted by the one velociraptor in front of him, and then he gets attacked from the side, exactly how Alan Grant described would happen earlier in the movie. The infamous kitchen scene in its entirety was fantastic. However, there were some references to Stanley Kubrick's 1980 horror film The Shining. When Tim crawls across the floor, you can see that a velociraptor looks directly at him, counting this as yet another movie mistake. The kitchen scene would then be used in a similar way during Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous Season 3, when the hybrid dinosaur, known as the Scorpius Rex, would interfere and cause havoc in this exact same kitchen in decades to come. Whilst Ellie was trying to help Alan from keeping the velociraptor out, she's actually blocking the door by the hinges, which makes no physical sense, as she's not really helping all that much. She would have been better help getting the Spaz 12 shotgun instead of sitting by the hinges of the door. The lettering that appears on the velociraptor face consists of A, G, C and T, which are the 4 bases that make up DNA. When Lex falls through the venting, you can see that her stunt double looks up at the camera by mistake, and it's clearly not Ariana Richards who plays Lex. The velociraptors end up clawing Rexy on her neck. This then scars and is used to identify Rexy in later films of the movie, which we can most prominently see in Jurassic World's ending. And finally, when Steven Spielberg's name shows up in the end credits, exactly on the 2-hour mark, Jurassic Park composer John Williams included a variation of the famous 5 tones from one of the director's earlier films, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And there we have it, 72 total Easter eggs and details in Jurassic Park that you might have missed. This video took a very long time to make, so please feel free to like the video and share it around with your friends to see if they missed any of these. Depending on whether or not I've been able to make this video on time, there should also be one of these that I've already uploaded to the channel, or possibly coming soon, that focuses on Jurassic World Dominion to celebrate its 1-year anniversary. So go ahead and press that subscribe button if you want to see that video and learn more about the Jurassic franchise, as this is the best place to be for exactly that. But in the meantime, make sure you're all staying safe out there, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye. Hello, hi, you, did you enjoy the video? Just a little reminder to press that like button and also subscribe. I just want to thank my Patreons for this month, on screen right here, as giving me that little extra support really does go a long way. But anyways, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day.